A Fragile Hope takes a little bit different approach than some of the other novels that I've written, but I tell stories hemmed in hope. So obviously hope was going to play a big role in this book, but the hopelessness of the situation was very prominent. It's told from the perspective of a male character, the husband in the relationship, rather than the wife, which normally that's the viewpoint we get in general fiction or women's fiction. But this is a man who is a well-known relationship expert. He speaks to stadiums full of people. He writes best-selling books on repairing marriages and family situations, and he has clever quips of advice that he dishes out quite freely, and he's pretty proud of himself because of that. When he finishes the manuscript for his most recent book that he's sure is going to be a bestseller, he comes downstairs and finds that his wife has left him. And there's a medical situation that makes her unable to tell him why or what was going on, or is this even true? So he has to live through the agony of deciding whether he's going to love and how he's going to love, and did he even understand what love was all about, even though this has been his profession for all this time. And he walks this very interesting journey to find his way back to what faith is really like and what the true definition of love is.
So here you have a so-called marriage expert. He's a Christian teacher, basically, relationship expert, go-to guy, telling people how to get their marriages right. In the midst of all of this, his marriage is falling apart, and he didn't even recognize it. How did he miss things?
Well, I think that all of us do. If we get so, whether it's man or woman or child or parent, if we get so caught up in what we're doing and even maybe a little thrilled about the way that we're being used in our profession, no matter what that profession is, it's so easy to miss the signs in our own home. And in this particular case, Josiah, who is the main character, had a woundedness in his past, as many of us do, that contributed to that as well. His father had believed that he could do nothing right. And so to compensate for that, he was overcompensating, and that in itself helped blind him to the things that were going on in his own relationship.
And that brings to mind a question. When we look, and you use that word overcompensate, I wanted to have you elaborate just a bit. From a spiritual standpoint, what do you see as the tendency that people might have to overcompensate for some of the woundedness that has gone undealt with by the Lord?
I think a lot of times what we do is we throw ourselves into ministry. We take on more and more. We find more projects to do. We think that we're salving or bandaging our wounds by getting over involved in whether that's ministry or our neighborhoods or whatever that might be. Or we pour our lives into our children and we don't refill so that we have something to pour into our children. Our spiritual well seems to take a last place on our list of to-dos, and instead we're if we keep busy enough, maybe this won't hurt so much. And that's the opposite of what usually happens, because we'll wind up crashing and burning. Or another element that might happen is that we will compensate with things that the world is trying to tell us will salve our pain. Alcohol or drugs or affections with others that's not a wise affection, friendships that take us away from the most important relationships that we have in our family, and most importantly, our relationship with Jesus Christ. And oftentimes what God is calling us back to is His Word and Himself, and the healing that we find there first, and then the other things. Then ministry can be born out of that, but instead, so many times we choose that option of taking what seems like an easy route or a shortcut to our healing instead of going to the source.